You're here because you want to expand your vocabulary with words and phrases to help you sound fluent and natural in English. But what about removing words and removing phrases because they're grammatically incorrect, sound unnatural, or maybe even sound rude? Well, today you'll learn 33 words and phrases that you should remove from your vocabulary, but don't worry because you'll also learn the correct alternatives so you expand your vocabulary and sound fluent, natural, and feel confident speaking in any situation. Welcome back to JForrest English. Of course, I'm Jennifer. Now let's get started. The first phrase that you should remove is, I will do it. Let's take this scenario. Imagine I say to you, can you do me a favor? Can you do me a favor and share this lesson with your friends? You might reply and say, I will do it, Jennifer, which is such a nice thing of you to do, but that is not how a native speaker would accept that task. To accept that task, a native speaker would simply say, do you know? You only need 2 words. A native speaker would say, will do. Will do. That's it. So you can consider this a phrase or an expression, a group of words, in this case only 2 words, will do, that have a meaning. And the meaning is, I will do the task. I will do whatever you ask me to do. In this case, share this lesson with your friends because I want all of your friends, everyone you know who is also improving their English to benefit from this lesson. So what can you say? Will do, Jennifer. Will do, Jennifer. That's the natural way to communicate this. You can use will do in both spoken and written English. It's very common to reply to a text message or an email and simply say will do. This sounds both professional and natural. So now if I say, can you do me a favor and like this video? What will you say? What will you reply back with? Will do or will do, Jennifer. So make sure you do it and like this video. The second phrase you should remove from your vocabulary is, how is it going? If you've been following my lessons for a while, you may know that I love saying, how's it going? And I love teaching my students this phrase because native speakers use it in our daily speech in both a social and professional context. You might be wondering why I want you to remove this from your vocabulary. Only because when I hear students use it, they either have incorrect pronunciation or unnatural pronunciation. And in order to sound fluent and confident in English, you need correct grammar, you need the correct context, you need to use the expression in the right situation or at the right time, and you also need correct pronunciation. So unfortunately, if you use this expression but your pronunciation is incorrect, it won't help you sound fluent or natural. So let's fix that. You can either remove it from your vocabulary and use an alternative. How are you doing? This is also a professional and friendly and very natural expression. How are you doing? Or you can keep how's it going in your vocabulary but pronounce it naturally. So let's work on the pronunciation. How's it? Notice that zit. How's it going? You need to combine those sounds together. How's it going? Repeat after me. How's it going? Now let's listen to some native speakers saying this phrase, how's it going? Because the best way to learn pronunciation is directly from native speakers in a natural context. So let's listen now.
How's it going for you in the department?
So ask them, how's it going? Are you delivering value?
Hey, gossip, how's it going?
So you can keep this phrase in your vocabulary if you're confident that the pronunciation is correct. Don't worry about taking notes because I summarize everything in a free lesson PDF. You can find the link in the description. The third phrase you should remove from your vocabulary is, where's the toilet? You should remove this because it sounds awkward, because it's too direct and it's slightly rude. This is a toilet, but the room where the toilets are located, the room where you can use the toilet is called the restroom, the restroom. So don't say, where's the toilet? Again, it sounds slightly rude. Say, where's the restroom? This is the phrase that you will use in public locations such as restaurants, malls, or offices. Where's the restroom? But if you're in someone's home, their house, apartment, flat, condo, if you're in someone's home, you would say, where's the bathroom? Bathroom. So change the word restroom to bathroom. But if you are shopping for toilets, you want to buy a new toilet and you're in a store, you can say, where are the toilets? Are you enjoying this lesson? If you are, then I want to tell you about the Finally Fluent Academy. This is my premium training program where we study native English speakers from TV, the movies, YouTube, and the news so you can improve your listening skills of fast English, expand your vocabulary with natural expressions, and learn advanced grammar easily. Plus, you'll have me as your personal coach. You can look in the description for the link to learn more, or you can go to my website and click on Finally Fluent Academy. Now let's continue with our lesson. The fourth phrase to remove is, the movie is bored. Do you know why you should remove this? It's the incorrect adjective choice. To be bored, the movie is bored. To be bored is a feeling of a lack of interest, a lack of engagement. But a movie cannot have a feeling. People can have feelings. So you can say, I'm bored. I'm bored. The adjective choice for the movie would be boring. To be boring with an ing. This is to describe something or someone that isn't interesting or engaging. So you can say, I'm bored. I have the feeling because the movie is boring. The movie is boring. Let's try this one. The class was so... What do you need? The class was so boring. Again, you can say she's bored. She has the feeling. She's bored because the class is boring. So remember, bored with an ed. Bored is a feeling or state. Boring with an ing. Boring is what causes the feeling or state. Hopefully this isn't the feeling you have now. Hopefully you aren't thinking to yourself, I'm bored. So what's the opposite? You could say, I'm engaged. I'm engaged. Put that in the comments. I'm engaged because this lesson is engaging. You got it. Number 5, I went to home. You should remove this from your vocabulary immediately because it's incorrect sentence structure. The correct sentence structure is, I went home. You don't use the preposition to. But if you said, I went to her home, his home, John's home, Jennifer's home, you need that preposition to. You cannot say, I went her home. It sounds incorrect. You have to say, I went to her home. So use to except when it's your home. I went home. It's your home. Number 6, she goes to the work at 9 a.m. You should remove this from your vocabulary immediately because, again, it's incorrect sentence structure. She goes to work, not to the work, but yes, you need the preposition to. You go to a location, except if it's your home. She goes to work at 9:00 a.m. Omit the before routine nouns such as work, home, school, and church. Let's look at this. She goes to university. University is a type of school and it's a routine place. She goes to university in the mornings, she goes to work in the afternoons, and she goes to church in the evenings. After a long day, she goes home because remember, with home you omit to, and with all routine places you omit the article. Remember though, it's possible to use an article, the or a, with these nouns when they're not routine. For example, we took pictures of a beautiful church. This isn't the church I routinely go to, it's just a church, any church. So you can use the article. Or she's giving a presentation at the university downtown. So in this case, it's not the university she routinely goes to, it's just a university. But it's a specific one, the one downtown, so you use the article the. Number 7, let's make a rest. I hear this from students a lot, but you should remove it from your vocabulary immediately because it's a direct translation. It's unnatural. It's not the way a native speaker would communicate this. So let's say I'm teaching a class and I'm about to say, okay, everyone, let's, what would I say? Do you know? Let's take a break. Let's take a break. That's how you communicate this naturally. That's the phrase. I could also say, let's take a quick break. So I add the word quick. Or let's take a 5-minute break to describe the break. Native speakers mainly use the verb take, but it is possible to use have. Let's have a break. But we do not use the verb make. Now also notice I said break. I didn't say pause or rest. To take a break. This is to have a short period of rest from an activity. Now I might say, I'm tired. I need to rest. In this case, maybe I need to take a nap, or I'm doing some strenuous physical activity and I just need to sit. That is to rest. Or I could say, let's pause the movie, which means temporarily stop. You may pause this video to use what? The bathroom, not the toilet, the bathroom. You may pause this lesson to use the bathroom. And also notice to rest, to pause, those are verbs. But a break is a noun and it's take a break, or less commonly but still acceptable, have a break. Make is not used. Number 8, every morning I walk with my dog. You should remove this from your vocabulary immediately because it's an awkward direct translation. You can grammatically walk with someone or something. This means to accompany, and it's more for companionship purposes, to spend time with each other. You can also walk someone or walk something, and this is to show that you have responsibility for this task. For example, I walk my kids to school. I'm responsible for this task, for making sure my kids get to school safely. I walk my kids to school. I walked my grandmother to the store. So I walk someone. I walked my grandmother. I had responsibility for this task because my grandmother is elderly and needs support. But if I say I walked with my grandmother to the store, this sounds more like companionship purpose. We wanted to spend quality time together. And that's why you should remove I walk with my dog, because that isn't the purpose. Companionship isn't the purpose. A native speaker would say, every morning I walk my dog because I have responsibility for that task. Every morning I walk my dog. You can also say, every morning I take my dog for a walk. And for companionship purposes, I would say, every morning I go for a walk with my husband. Or every morning my husband and I go for a walk. So to go for a walk is for the purpose of leisure or exercise. It's not simply to reach a destination. Number 9, thanks you teacher for help me. I hear this a lot, but it's grammatically incorrect, and that's why you should remove it from your vocabulary immediately. There are 2 correct forms. You can say thanks teacher with an S or thank you teacher without an S. Those are the correct forms. Thank teacher is incorrect. Thanks you teacher is incorrect. Thanks teacher for helping me. You need to say for helping me. You could also say thanks teacher for your help, because for is a preposition and you need a gerund verb, the verb in ing, or you can use a noun, your help. That's a something, that's a noun. So to remember that and to show your appreciation for the help I provided, put thanks Jennifer, and make sure you have that S, or say thank you Jennifer and don't use an S. Put one of those options in the comments. Now let's move on and focus on individual words that you should remove, and we'll review 12 words, and don't worry because you'll learn the alternatives that you should add to your vocabulary. The first word you should remove is try. Why? Because it's disempowering, it lacks commitment, and it sounds weak. For example, I'll try to improve my speaking skills. This doesn't sound like you've made a true commitment. This doesn't sound like you believe it's possible. So instead, use stronger words that show that you're committed, that show you believe in yourself as well. You can use will or commit to. I will improve my speaking skills. When you say will, you're making a commitment. It sounds very strong. People will respect you when you say, I will do this, because it's a strong word. You can also say, I'm committed to. I'm committed to improving my speaking skills. Now, these words don't mean that you're going to improve today or tomorrow, or even that you know how. It's just saying that you are committed, you will, whereas the word try sounds weak. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. Don't worry about taking notes because I summarize everything in a free lesson PDF. You can find the link in the description. Number 2, advices. Do you know why you should remove this word from your vocabulary? I hear this word every single day from many, many students, even my most advanced students. But what's the problem with the word advices? It's grammatically incorrect. The word does not exist in English because the word advice is always singular. Now, there are many grammar mistakes that you can make, and most native speakers won't even notice them. But if you say advices to a native speaker, they will instantly think your English isn't very fluent. And if you are in a job interview or going for your IELTS, this could make you fail and not get the result you want. So it's really important that right now you remove this from your vocabulary. And remember, don't say, I'll try, Jennifer, I'll try. No, what are you going to say? I will remove this from my vocabulary today. I'm committed to removing this. So all you have to do is drop that S. Remember, you can't say, thanks for your advices, or can you give me some advices? What do you have to say? Remember, drop that S. Thanks for your advice. Can you give me some advice? And notice you can still use a modifier some with the singular advice. And to sound even more fluent and more professional, you can use piece or pieces of advice. Advice is always singular, and this is to emphasize singular or plural. So you can say, that's a great piece of advice if you want to emphasize one. Or you could say, those are great pieces of advice if you want to emphasize more than one, plural. So are you enjoying the advice in this video so far? If you are, of course, like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe, and put woohoo in the comments so I know you're enjoying this advice. The next word you should remove from your vocabulary is wrong. The word wrong. This is because in English, it can sound very harsh, critical, and it's also disempowering. As a teacher, I avoid saying that answer is wrong because that might make the student feel bad about themselves, bad about their English level, because there are a lot of strong emotions in the word wrong. Think of all the times you've been told this as a child or even as an adult and how it makes you feel. So I say instead, as a teacher, that answer is incorrect. You could also say that answer isn't correct. It sounds more neutral and it sounds more empowering. So for you, if you're in a social situation or a professional situation and someone says something and you know that information isn't correct, don't say you're wrong. For example, the meeting starts at 3 p.m. and you know the meeting doesn't start at 3 p.m. Don't say to that coworker, you're wrong, because that sounds very critical. You can use the word actually. Actually is used to correct information, a false assumption. So you can say, actually, it starts at 4 p.m. That is a softer way to communicate it. Or you could say, I have it in my calendar for 4 p.m. Let's confirm the correct time. Think of how much better this will be for your relationship with that person rather than saying you're wrong. Number 4, can't. Of course, this word is disempowering and it sounds weak, similar to the word try. I'm sure you've said statements about your English using can't many times. I can't understand native speakers. But this sounds like a definitive statement, which isn't empowering you or motivating you or encouraging you. And it makes you sound weak to other people. There's a great strategy where you can still use can't, just add the word yet at the end. So say, I can't understand native speakers yet, which means right now this is true, but in the future, this will not be true. So it's such an empowering sentence just by adding that one word yet, and add it right at the end. You can also use commit to, which we learned before, as a replacement to try. Right now, I can't understand native speakers, but I'm committed to improving my listening skills. Think of how much more empowering that sounds. Now let's talk about recommend me. What's the problem here? Why shouldn't you use recommend me? Well, just like with advices, it's grammatically incorrect. I hear recommend me from students so often that it's starting to sound normal to me because I hear it so much. But from students, it is not grammatically correct. Native speakers don't say that. So what do you think of this sentence? Would you recommend me this book? What do you think about that? It's incorrect. The correct sentence structure is recommend something to someone. So how can you fix that sentence? Would you recommend something, this book, to someone, to me? Would you recommend this book to me? So starting right now, you need to remove recommend me from your vocabulary. Let's talk about I don't know. You should remove this because again, it's disempowering and it sounds weak. You want to communicate confidently. Saying I don't know often makes you sound unconfident. You can say, I don't know when the meeting starts. That is fine. You can say, I don't know how to use the word myriad. Can you explain it to me? That's fine. But don't make general statements and say, I don't know how to improve my speaking skills. This is disempowering. It doesn't motivate you to try to improve your speaking skills because you just said you don't know how. Instead, you can say, I'm confident. I'm confident I can improve my speaking skills. Think of how much more professional, strong you sound if you said that in a meeting. I don't know how to use Excel. I'm confident I can learn how to use Excel. So you can use this in any situation. You can also simply say, I know I can. I know I can improve my speaking skills. Or I will improve my speaking skills. Now let's talk about gonna. I strongly feel you should remove this from your vocabulary. And the reason is because I work with students every single day in the Finally Fluent Academy, and I see students try to use the word gonna, but they either use it incorrectly and it doesn't sound professional, or the grammar that they use it is completely wrong. So it sounds unprofessional. Now remember, gonna is slang and it sounds unprofessional if used in the wrong context or if it's used incorrectly. Native speakers use this word all the time. Instead of saying going to, native speakers say gonna. This is a reduction that naturally takes place in spoken English. I don't think, should I use the word gonna? It just comes out naturally because our sounds combine naturally in spoken English. So even in a workplace situation, I could say to a coworker, we're gonna grab a bite. Do you want to join? So instead of saying going to, I combine those sounds and say gonna. The problem is I see students try to use this, but instead they say, I'm gonna to send you the report by 5 p.m. Well, first of all, this is grammatically incorrect because going to is gonna. So you don't use to again. And also the context of this sentence sounds more professional if this were written English. So in this case, it would be inappropriate to use in a professional context in written English. Native speakers use gonna in written English, but in a more informal context, quick text messages or quick emails, but it depends on the situation. Because you might not know when you should or shouldn't use gonna, that's why I recommend you remove it from your vocabulary. Going to is always correct. Gonna is often incorrect or unprofessional. Number 8, shall. This is outdated in most contexts. First of all, shall is a modal verb for a future action for the subjects I or we. First of all, you need to know how to use it correctly, and many students don't. But native speakers don't use the word shall anymore, except in very specific situations. A native speaker would not say, I shall go to the party. A native speaker would say, I will go to the party. So for future actions, native speakers use will. But native speakers do use shall in very specific situations. For example, if you're at a restaurant or an event or a party and you want to leave, you can turn to the person and say, shall we go? And the other person can reply back and say, we shall. But you might not know how to use this word correctly. And because native speakers only use it in this very specific situation, and in all other cases, it makes you sound outdated, I recommend removing it from your vocabulary. Number 9, good. This is vague and it's also basic. Native speakers use this word all the time as well. For example, when I often ask my husband, how was your day? He just says, good. It was good. What does that tell me about his day? It tells me nothing. Or you might ask your friend, how was your vacation? Or your coworker, how was the meeting? And if all they say is, it was good, you don't have a lot of information, do you? So you can still say good, but I recommend expanding that with at least one specific point. For example, how was the meeting? It was good. We learned a new method for organizing our files. So technically you can keep good in your vocabulary, but add on to it. Don't just say it was good. Number 10, interesting. This word is vague and is also quite confusing in English because interesting can be positive, interesting in a good way, or it can be negative, interesting in a bad way, depending on context. Sometimes native speakers use the word interesting when we don't want to offend someone. So if my friend asks me, oh, do you like my new shirt? I can say, oh, that's an interesting shirt. So in reality, I don't like the shirt, so I can describe it as interesting, which is actually a negative in this case, but hopefully my friend doesn't realize that. So if your friend asks you, how was the party? Now you know, don't just say it was good, and also don't just say it was interesting. If the party was positive, you can say the party was entertaining, engaging, enjoyable, delightful. These words only have a positive meaning. Or if you want it to mean interesting in a bad way, you can say the party was dull, boring, tedious, lifeless. So those are great positive and negative adjectives to replace the word interesting. Number 11, really. This is overused even by native speakers, and it's also very basic. I'm really tired. But there is one word that means really tired. Do you know what that word is? I'm really tired. I'm exhausted. So it communicates the same thing without using the word really. I'm really busy. What's the one word to replace really busy? I'm swamped. The party was really good. What's one word to replace really good? Well, there are many options. For example, the party was amazing, entertaining, exciting. Start with these that I shared and keep learning one word alternatives to really plus word. Number 12, persons. A native speaker will instantly know that English is not your first language if you use the word persons in an everyday context because it's only used in a government, legal, or official context. In everyday English, there's one person, the word is singular, and then what's the plural? Two people. People is the plural of person. So in any everyday context, including business and academic, you would say all people must register before attending the conference. But in government, legal, or official English, they would say all persons must complete the form, or this policy applies to all persons older than 55. I hear English learners say, I met some interesting persons at the party. This is an everyday context, and using persons sounds unnatural. You should say, I met some interesting people at the party. Now let's focus on phrases again. And these are 12 phrases that you shouldn't use with native speakers because they sound awkward, they're too direct, or they could even sound rude or offensive. So let's review them so you feel confident starting conversations. The first phrase you should never say to natives is, "Can you correct my English?" I understand that you're an English learner, and many of the natives that you interact with are English teachers like me. But when you're in the real world communicating with natives, maybe it's at a party, a social function, a conference, or simply talking to some people at a park. Those people are not English teachers. So in this situation, it seems awkward, unnatural to ask a native to correct your English. And also remember that it's not the purpose of your conversation. You didn't start a conversation with someone at a party to get feedback on your English. Hopefully you started a conversation with someone at a party to get to know that person, to talk about interesting ideas or movies that you've seen. Now you might be thinking, well, I need to ask them for feedback on my English because they might not understand me. But don't worry, the person will tell you if he or she can't understand you. You will know if your English skills are a problem. When you're outside of the classroom, the focus is not on your English skills. Make sure you keep the focus on your conversation. And you should learn some small talk phrases to help you keep the conversation going. Small talk phrases are topics about the weather or traffic or movies, world events that you can use. And my best advice for you is simply ask the person a question. If you don't know what to talk about with a person, just ask them a question. The second phrase you shouldn't use with natives is, how do you call this in English? Now you should remove this phrase because it's grammatically incorrect. It's not the way a native would say this. I understand that when you're talking to natives, you might be in a situation where you do need to ask about a word or the meaning of something. So here are the correct phrases. How do you say this in English? So not how do you call this, how do you say this in English? You can also say, what's the word I'm looking for? What's the word I'm looking for? And then most likely the native speaker will just naturally help you try to finish your idea or help you communicate. You can also say, what is this called in English? Now, of course, you can use these phrases if the word is important for the specific conversation. But don't use these to get a free English lesson from native speakers. Remember, focus on the conversation. And that leads us to number 3. Can I practice speaking with you? This can be awkward and rude when you're not in an English learning environment. If you're in the real world, then you should be interested in talking to the person because you want to get to know them or you want to talk about something specific, not because you're interested in a free English lesson. So if you are in the real world and if it's an appropriate time to talk, to start a conversation, again, you can use some small talk phrases to start a natural conversation. So you can make a general statement or ask a simple question. So let's take a general statement about the weather. Beautiful day, isn't it? And if the person is interested in talking to you, keep in mind they might not be, and that's okay. If they are interested, then they will naturally reply, and then the conversation will happen naturally. Another general statement, I hope it doesn't rain this weekend. And again, the conversation will happen naturally. Asking a question, a simple question, is a great way to start a conversation. You might ask the person, are there any good restaurants near here? Or what did you think about, and then maybe it was the conference you just went to, or a movie, or something specific. Asking for their opinion. They'll share their opinion, and then you can start a conversation naturally. The next phrase you should never say to natives is, I don't understand. Now, this statement is just too direct. So if you're having a conversation at a party with someone and they're talking to you and you simply say, I don't understand. Well, it might embarrass you because you don't understand. It might make you feel bad. But it might also embarrass the speaker because remember, natives that you're talking to are not English teachers. Natives don't know that they use phrasal verbs, idioms, expressions, or use connected speech or talk very quickly. Natives don't think about these things. English teachers do, students do, but natives in the real world do not. So the native might feel a little embarrassed that you don't understand them. So here's what you can say instead. If you don't understand because the person is talking too fast, then you can say, would you mind? Would you mind speaking a little slower? You don't have to provide a reason. You don't have to say, because English is my second language. You don't need to. Would you mind speaking a little slower? Oh, sure, no problem. Or do you mind rephrasing that? So the native speaker said something, but the combination of words you didn't understand. So to rephrase it, the native speaker knows they should share the same idea, but use different words. So that is how a native speaker, not an English teacher, a native speaker understands what you want them to do. Do you mind rephrasing that? Or you can simply say, can you explain that in a simpler way? And don't feel bad about saying this. I use this all the time when I'm talking to my husband, who uses a lot of technical computer expressions that I don't understand. I have to ask him to explain things to me in a simple way because my level of knowledge on that specific subject is a lot lower than his. Now, instead of saying, I don't understand, you can add one word. I don't quite understand. This makes it sound softer, but then add on, can you give me an example? Can you say it a different way? Can you rephrase that? So add on something else if you want to start with, I don't quite understand. Number 5, when you're talking to natives, you should not say, sorry for my English mistakes. Sorry for my bad English. Remember, native speakers are not English teachers. They're also not examiners. They're not evaluating your English. They're listening for your ideas. So if you say that, if you apologize for your bad English, this may be awkward for both you and the native speaker, and it also might stop whatever natural conversation you were having, and it shifts the focus onto something that the native speaker honestly doesn't want to talk about. They don't want to talk about your English. They want to talk about the movie you are discussing. And remember, the person you're talking to, they will tell you if they can't understand you. And then you know that there is an issue that needs to be addressed. So remember, focus on the conversation, not your English skills. Again, learn some small talk phrases to keep the conversation going, and you can always ask the person a question. People love talking, so when you ask a question, it puts the focus on the other person instead of yourself. Now let's move on to some non-English related phrases. And number 6, you should not ask a native speaker, "How old are you?" This may be the same in your culture. Please let me know in the comments. But in North America, it's generally considered rude to ask someone's age directly. So to directly say, "How old are you?" Now, although this is considered rude in North American culture, North Americans are still curious about people's ages. So we have other ways of trying to find out this information without directly asking the person. So you can say just simply, "Tell me about yourself," and the information the person shares can reveal approximately how old they are. Now you can ask, "How old is your mom, sister, or daughter?" It is considered appropriate to ask someone about someone else's age. So if you know how old the person's sister is, you can approximate how old they are, for example. Or you might just ask, "How long have you been working here?" Or "When did you graduate?" So you absolutely can ask other questions that have to do with age, but just don't directly ask someone, "How old are you?" Number 7, what religion are you? Again, in North America specifically, it's generally considered inappropriate to talk about someone's religious or political beliefs. So if you want to find out about that person, you can simply say, "Tell me more about your culture and your traditions." And from that, you will probably understand naturally what religion or what beliefs they have. So it is appropriate to ask follow-up questions based on the information the person shares. So if they share a specific tradition, you can absolutely ask a follow-up on that topic. Now you can also ask what holidays are celebrated in your culture. In North America, we love celebrating holidays like everyone in the world, and we are happy to talk about holidays. And when you find out what holidays the person celebrates, that will give you clues at least into their beliefs if that's important for you to know. Number 8, don't say to a native speaker, even someone you know well, "You look tired." This is similar to saying, "You look bad, you look unwell, you look unattractive." And this can also be awkward because the person could be very tired, but maybe it's for a private reason. They didn't get any sleep last night because there is some family event taking place, but they don't want to discuss it. So when you make that statement, they may feel obligated to tell you why they are in fact tired, and it might not be a conversation they want to have. Now, if someone does look legitimately tired and you are concerned about them, there are other ways that native speakers even phrase this to sound more polite or indirect. "How did you sleep last night?" Or you can make a general, "Hope you're having a great day so far. Hope you're having a great week so far." And then it invites them to share with you if they aren't having a good day or week because they slept poorly or because there is some event taking place in their life. But it gives them the opportunity to share that or not share that. Now, with someone you are quite close with, you might ask a more direct question and say, "Is everything okay? Is everything okay?" But that is really only for close relationships. Number 9, please don't ask a native speaker, "Why aren't you married?" Remember that marital status is considered personal information in North America. And discrimination based on marital status is forbidden in North America by law. So this is more of a sensitive issue in North America, perhaps compared to other countries. So again, in North America, generally, we don't like to ask direct personal questions about someone, their status, their beliefs. But you can always think of an indirect question to try to find out more about that person. For example, how do you spend your free time? And then you can get a sense of how this person likes to live. Maybe that isn't with a partner. Maybe they have other activities. Or, what did you do last weekend? Or tell me about your family. Now, instead of directly asking someone, "Why aren't you married?" Again, with a very close relationship, you may feel comfortable saying something more direct, such as, have you thought about getting married? But again, that would be more for a closer relationship, certainly not someone you just met at a party or at the park. Number 10, similar to the last one, don't ask a native speaker, "Why don't you have kids?" North America is tolerant of different life choices, and asking someone about this is just considered too personal for North American culture, and for our culture, it sounds judgmental. Since we accept people of all different beliefs and all different lifestyles, it sounds judgmental to say, "Why don't you?" But you can ask someone directly, "Do you have kids?" Generally, parents are proud to talk about their kids, and it isn't considered offensive to ask that. You can directly ask someone, "Do you have kids? How many kids do you have?" Just keep in mind that this question is considered inappropriate in a job interview because in interviews, people are protected against discrimination. So this question will not be asked in a job interview, but you can directly ask a native speaker in a social situation, "Do you have kids?" Now again, if you are very curious, why does that person not have kids? Well, maybe you just want to know more about their life and how they spend their time. So you can ask them, "What hobbies or interests do you enjoy in your free time? What goals or causes are important to you? Or how do you picture your life 5 years from now?" These are questions that would be interesting for a native speaker to discuss, and you'll get to know about them at the same time in an indirect, clever way. Number 11, you should do this. Should and shouldn't are direct. And in general, people don't like being told what to do. However, of course, there are many situations where using should and shouldn't is appropriate. But if you want to sound more indirect, use softer language, you can say, "Have you considered?" You need the gerund next. Have you considered talking to your boss? Perhaps you could. Perhaps you could talk to your boss. Those sound like gentle suggestions where "you should" sounds very direct. Now you could also say, "What do you think about talking to your boss?" And then you're getting that person to share their opinion, and ultimately they make the decision, not you, because you say "you should." But remember, there are many situations where you would use should or shouldn't. And finally, number 12, I don't like that. Again, this can be awkward or rude when used as a reply to something someone else likes or something that someone has offered you. So let's say you're at a party and you're talking to someone and they love mountain climbing and you just want to participate. So you say, I don't like mountain climbing. Well, that might make the person feel like you don't appreciate their interests and they might not want to talk to you anymore. So you can say, for example, that's great that you love mountain climbing. I prefer reading. I prefer reading instead of physical activities. So you're complimenting them, but then stating your preference without specifically saying you don't like mountain climbing. Or you can say, that's great that you love mountain climbing. Do you have any upcoming trips planned? So again, you're not sharing your personal preference at all. You're keeping the focus on that person. Or let's say it's something that someone offers you. So you're at a party and someone offers you a piece of chocolate cake. Now you could say, no thanks, I don't like chocolate. But again, this is very direct. And you've probably noticed that we prefer a more indirect approach in general social situations. So you might say, that's so kind of you to offer. So to offer me a piece of cake, that's so kind of you to offer. I'll pass though. Now you can leave it at that, I'll pass. You could provide the reason and just say, I'll pass though, I'm not hungry. So again, just avoid directly saying, I don't like this, because the person may feel a little awkward in that situation. Do you want me to make another lesson just like this? If you do, then put more in the comments below. And of course, make sure you like this lesson, share it with your friends, and subscribe so you're notified every time I post a new lesson. And you can get this free speaking guide where I share 6 tips on how to speak English fluently and confidently. You can click here to download it or look in the link for the description. And I have another lesson I know you'll love, so make sure you watch it right now.